Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's CAFETA webinar. We're coming to you live on May 9th, 2024. For any NLC webinar first-timers here today who aren't yet aware, our CAFETA webinars get their name from the Creek word for learning. And today, y'all are going to be learning about surviving your first year of business in Indian country from Russ Siegel. My name is Brooke Warrington. I'm the Training and Development Specialist at the Native Learning Center. All of us are so thrilled that you could join us here today for today's webinar. If you could follow along while I read the disclaimer aloud, this webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. We also have our copyright infringement law printed here. So just a friendly reminder that the materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. I want to familiarize you with how the environment works on Adobe before we get started with today's webinar. So if you want to interact throughout the webinar, by looking at the top of your screen, you'll see an icon of a hand with a plus sign. If you click on that icon, you could either signal that you're raising your hand, agreeing, disagreeing. You could show applause, you could show laughter. You could even signal requests like asking the instructor to speak louder or to slow down, please. Now your screen should look similar to this graphic here. So to the bottom left, you'll see a pod that says Files. Here you will find a worksheet item that goes with today's webinar, along with a copy of today's presentation slides. Feel free to download a copy for yourself. Just hover over the item you want to download with your mouse, and then you'll click the arrow pointing downwards. That'll download it and save it onto your device. And again, Russ did give permission for his slides to be shared, so there's a copy of those in PDF form in that Files pod. The second pod to the right labeled web links is where you'll find our survey about today's webinar, along with a link to receive our weekly newsletter. You can connect with the Native Learning Center on LinkedIn. You can connect with Russ on LinkedIn, and any other links that might be seen throughout today's presentation. Then finally, all the way over to the right, we have the chat pod available. This is how you'll communicate with the instructor and the NLC staff. So if you have any questions during the presentation, we welcome you to send them in by using it. Just type your message into the space that says type here and hit enter or click that up arrow icon button to submit. We do, of course, encourage class participation, so feel free to ask your questions, write in your comments. And if you're having any kind of tech issues, you could let me know by putting that into the chat box as well. Know that usually simply exiting and then rejoining the meeting room fixes those. Let's get the chat box going together. Go ahead and include your name, where you're joining us from, your tribal affiliation, and your work or your role that you have here in Indian country. All right, folks, with that, it is with great pleasure that I introduce today's webinar instructor, Russ Siegel. Russ, I'm going to hand it off to you now.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Thank you. Welcome. I'm glad that you're going to spend a little time with me today, whether it's morning or afternoon, wherever you are. I hope you're having a great day. I look forward to this program because this takes me back. This program takes me back to my first year in a lot of businesses. I have owned several businesses, and so today you're going to get the benefit of not only the things that I learned during that first year, but what I've learned from other business owners over the years. I'm Russ Siegel, and I've been doing this for over 25 years, not only running my own businesses, founding my own businesses, but working with a lot of startups over the years to help guide them through that very critical early period where they're just, you're learning on the fly. You think you have it all figured out, and the day you open the doors and the public starts walking in, you realize that you still have a lot to learn. So one of the deals that I make with the Native Learning Center is that you can contact me. You have my LinkedIn information. I'm also giving you my email address. You can always contact me. It doesn't cost you anything to just reach out and say, hey, Russ, I was in a webinar. I'd like a little more information on this. Can you point me in the right direction on that? Can you give me a resource or whatever? Happy to do that. Doesn't cost you anything to do that. That's just part of who I am and what I do. I want to make sure that that you get what you came for. I kind of have a personal motto that if you ain't got it, I ain't taught it. So I want to make sure that you absolutely get all your questions answered. We're going to have some time for some Q&A as well today. But feel free, if a question crosses your mind, drop it in the chat. I'll stop what I'm doing. We'll make sure we get to everything today. We're going to talk about the Mike Tyson view, the great boxer who I think is getting back in the ring at the end of June. Mike Tyson's view is everybody has a plan until they get hit in the nose. And there are going to be times during those early days when you're going to feel like you've been hit in the nose with your business. You're going to feel like there are times you just want to go back home and crawl under the covers and make it all go away. But there's a way to deal with that, and we're going to make sure that it's as smooth as possible. We'll talk about a lot of those first year challenges that are common to a lot of small businesses, whether these businesses are located in urban areas, suburban areas, rural areas, it really doesn't matter. Business is business, and we find a lot of the same challenges across the board. We'll talk about how to form good habits with your money, with your systems, and with your marketing across that first year, how to deal with the growing pains, because sometimes things turn out much better than you ever expected. And you think that's going to be a good thing. But sometimes that's like getting hit in the nose as well. How do you deal with those? And we'll talk about some personal things about how to fuel your success for the first year. Because if you're not taking care of you and you're not healthy personally, you're not really going to be able to drive your business forward. So I have a saying that how you handle year one is going to determine whether you make it to year 5. And we all know that year 5 is critical, because if you make it to year 5, you stand a vastly greater chance of surviving long term. So if you handle year 1, it's going to determine how you make it to year 5. If you make it to year 5, your chances of long-term survival is pretty good. It's never guaranteed. But that first year is critical, because you may have heard the saying that how you do one thing is how you do everything. One of the things that we talk to folks about when they come into Sequoia Fund for a small business loan, they want to start a business. Maybe it's an auto repair shop, maybe it's a service business, but no matter what type of business you have, you're going to want to hold on. I'm sorry. I'm having a technical issue on this end. I apologize. Give me about 2 seconds here. I'm seeing a little. We had some really serious thunderstorms, and it has thrown our entire electrical world for a loop. My apologies. Heather, can you hear me okay? I'm getting a message here. Has it started?
Yeah, your voice is coming through, Russ.
Make sure everyone is hearing me okay. Brooke, can you confirm?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Are you able to hear me?
Okay. Excellent. Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah. Sometimes it's maybe just a setting. I was really worried that our electrical storms here had just fried everything, and maybe I was just talking to the ether and nobody was hearing me. Apologies for that. But that first year, you're going to build habits. And we talk to people a lot of times. They come in and they say, well, I want to start a business. And our first question is, well, how do you run your personal life? How do you take care of your personal money? If you don't reconcile your checking account, if you don't know what kind of balance you have on your credit card, if you can't find your checkbook, if your bills are getting paid late or not at all, the way you do that is the way you're going to run your business. And it's not going to be good for your business. It's not going to be good for you. It's going to compound your money problems. So the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And if you need to take some time to start building good money habits, good time management habits, just kind of getting your personal life in order, we highly recommend that you do that. There is no rush to start a business. There is no law that says if you have a business idea, you have to start that business immediately. Take your time. Just take your time. Take a deep breath. Get your personal money in order. Get your personal life in order. Get your organization in order. Because that first year in business, some days is going to feel like chaos. Some days it's going to feel like, what have I done? What in the world am I trying to do here? Well, the best way to make that first year as smooth as possible is to start with a good plan. Now, you've probably heard the old saying that failure to plan is planning. I'm sorry, failure to plan is planning to fail. And I think maybe that's attributed to Benjamin Franklin or somebody, but it's one of those situations where a good business plan is not going to guarantee your success, but trying to do this without one will almost surely guarantee your failure. So you don't want to, go down the road without a map or go down the road without a GPS. I've always likened starting a business without a business plan to just jumping in a boat and saying, see you guys, I'm going to Europe. Where in Europe? Do you know? Do you know where you're going? Do you know how you're going to get there? Do you know what kind of provisions to take? Do you know which way the wind is blowing? Sounds crazy, but there's so many business ideas where somebody just starts out and says, I will figure this out. Well, that's like jumping out of an airplane, deciding that you're going to sew the parachute together on the way down. You've got a limited time to figure everything out. And you don't want to be falling as you do it. So why do you need to write a plan? And the plan is really going to serve 4 purposes. One, it's a feasibility study. It's going to help you determine, is this going to work? You will know on paper whether your idea is an opportunity. Now, there's a difference there. I'm going to use those terms, but not interchangeably. I have great ideas all the time, but they're usually nothing I could ever execute, nothing I could ever do because it's not my strength. It's not in my wheelhouse. And you've probably had these ideas too. You drive down the road and you see an empty building and you say, I wish they would build a restaurant there. I wish they would put in a dry cleaner there or a laundromat. It's the capital they, right? It's always we wish somebody else. That's an idea. That the idea is, I wish they would make it possible for me to own a flying car, right? But opportunities are where our ideas and our strengths and our resources intersect. We can have good ideas all the time, but if we can't muster the resources to make them a reality, and if we don't have the strength to do this ourselves, then it is just an idea. So you want that feasibility study rather than just going out there and throwing money at an idea. You want to work it out on paper. Then it becomes a roadmap for your business direction. And roadmap is kind of antiquated, right? Your business plan really needs to operate more like a GPS. A roadmap, if you get lost, you got to drag that roadmap out and you got to find where you are or guesstimate where you are. And you got to find your way back to the main road. But no, your GPS just says very calmly, doesn't yell at you, doesn't fuss at you. It just says, recalculating. We're going to get you back on the right road. Make a U-turn up here. Everything's going to be just fine. It's that soothing, comforting voice that sometimes you don't get from the passenger seat, right? So you want that business plan so that you can refer back to it. And you can say, are we on course? Are we where we thought we'd be? Or do we need to do some recalculation? Your business plan is also going to help you measure performance against those goals. Not only are we just trying to decide, are we where we're supposed to be, but hey, maybe we're exceeding our goals. Maybe we're doing much, much better than we thought, and we need to increase our aggressiveness and go for bigger goals. Heather, I just saw your question here. Yes, in the bottom left where it says files, you can download that number 1 file, Surviving Your First Year in Business. It will give you every one of these slides in a PDF format, so it should open up on any computer. Great question. Glad we can provide that for you. The Getting a Good Start is more of just a handout. It's a place for you to take notes if you want to download that, and you can jot some notes out as we go. One of the best business plans I ever saw was a restaurant. The woman had been in the restaurant business for years. She had never owned a restaurant, but she decided that she was going to lean very heavily on her business plan. It started out, it was just a great business plan to begin with. She had a well thought out concept. She understood her numbers. She had a great location. But every 3 months for one day, that restaurant closed, and the kitchen staff and the front of the house staff, everybody involved in the business, her husband was her bookkeeper, everybody gathered at the restaurant and they tore the business plan apart. They ripped it into shreds. They separated it out into sections. They worked on it in various small groups. And at the end of the day, they said, are we where we thought we'd be? They measured their performance against their goals. They said, do we need to do some recalculating? Is what we're doing feasible? If we want to introduce new menu items, how are they going to affect our cash flow, our profitability? How are they going to affect our customers? How are they going to affect our other menu items? Maybe putting this new item on the menu was going to cause us to lose some storage space for other things. What is coming off the menu? Do we need to take something off? That business plan morphed so much over the first 3 years that it was not even the same business plan that they had on day one, but it was a beautiful living document that allowed them to grow the business and for everybody in the operation to have a better understanding. And that's the 4th reason you need a plan. It becomes a communication tool. For your employees, it becomes a communication tool to say, this is where you fit into our success. This is how the work you do is important. For your landlord, it says, this is a business we have really done our homework on. We've thought about this, and we know that this is going to work, because landlords hate vacancies. They hate turnover. For your lender, whether you're banking or whether you're getting a loan from a native CDFI like Sequoia Fund, you want to be able to say, look, we've really thought this through. We understand our business. We will answer any questions that you have. We want to communicate to you that we've got a good handle on this. And for your family, you want to be able to communicate. Now, let's face it, starting a business is hard enough. If those who are closest to you are pushing against you, if they say, why are you trying to do this? Why don't you just go get a real job? Don't take this risk. Okay, the business plan now communicates to them that you haven't just flipped out and you're throwing money wildly into a wood chipper. That you have figured out what you're doing and you're going to make a go of it. Last but not least, probably most importantly, it's a communication tool for you. If you were going to take money out from under your mattress or out of your bank account or out of your IRA, your 401k, whatever it is, if you're cashing something out and you're going to invest that in blue chip stocks or tech stocks or an index fund, wouldn't you want to do some homework? If your friend came to you and said, I own a trucking company, I need you to invest so I can buy more trucks, more trailers, hire more drivers, wouldn't you do your homework? Wouldn't you want to know that you're making a good investment? The same thing is true if you're investing in yourself. You need to be able to communicate to yourself that this is going to work, so that when you have those tough days and you just want to crawl back into bed, you can pull out that business plan and say, Am I still on track? And if we're still on track, we can make it. Let's get out there and get after it. So you're going to need that. I'm going to go back here and we're going to talk about fantasy versus reality. It's back to that Mike Tyson quote that everybody has a plan until they get hit in the nose. Well, as you're writing your business plan, you're living in a fantasy world because you haven't yet started. You haven't yet seen the rubber hit the road. But when that door opens, when that phone rings, when that business gets started, that first day, you move from a world of fantasy into a world of reality. Now, your business plan for a lender like Sequoia Fund, we're asking our borrowers to do some heavy lifting. And that is take this thing that doesn't exist yet, except in your brain, right? Take this idea, prove to us on paper that this will work. That's a tall order, folks. But being able to do that is able to take you from the fantasy world to the reality. And I've already talked to you about how to use the business plan because, the restaurant example I gave you, there's none better. Break that business plan out once a month, once a quarter, twice a year, but at a minimum, once a year. Rip it apart, go through it, dissect it, make sure you're still on track. If you do that, you're actually getting the most value out of your business plan. That first year, you may be referring to that business plan on a pretty regular basis, and you should be. What I'm going to advise you against is what I call a filing cabinet business plan. A filing cabinet business plan is the one that you write, or you have your neighbor write, or you have a college student write, or you pay a service to write, or well, my goodness, you have Chat GPT write it, and then you take it to a lender, and the lender says, "Yeah, this looks pretty good. We'll give you some money," and then you throw it into a filing cabinet, and you never refer to it again. You need to write your own plan. I'm not a big fan of business plan writing software because it's not you. It's not coming from your voice. It's not your style. It's not coming from your heart. It is prompted, and sometimes it doesn't answer all the questions that people need answered. And if they ask you to answer those questions, you may not know the answer. So we want to make sure that if you write your own plan, if I ask you a question about numbers, you're going to be able to know what I'm talking about. It's not going to be a surprise. Oh, well, my nephew wrote the business plan for me. That is not what we want to hear. So let's talk about what you need in your plan very quickly. I'm going to give you this. This is just a basic outline of a business plan. But there's no one way to write a business plan. Okay. This is not the end all be all outline of a business plan. This is just the common sections that you need in a business plan. Concept overview. Look, we all know what McDonald's is about. Golden Arches. You see the Golden Arches, you think burgers, fries, shakes, salads, wraps, whatever. Fast food. Okay. You might think fuel, not food. I just need something to put in my belly to keep me driving down the road. Well, whatever that concept is, it works. Jiffy Lube, quick oil changes. Facebook, communication device, keep in touch with friends from high school, those kinds of things. So you need to be able to communicate your concept so that in just a few words or a few sentences, people can understand exactly what your business looks like and what it does. You want a product or a service description, and I'm going to stop right here. And this is where I'm going to tell you that we all do the same two things. We all sell exactly the same two things. And I'm going to tell you in a little bit what those two things are. But when you think about your product or service description, I want you to talk about it in terms of what we're going to talk about in a few minutes, not just, it's 7 inches wide and it's 14 inches tall and it's 12 inches deep and it's square with rounded corners and it's, 8 pounds. No, don't give us the technical details. What we're going to do is talk about it in terms of what I'm going to tell you about in a little bit. So keep that in mind. Put a pin in that. We're coming back to it. Your market description. You need to be able to understand your customers. Who are you selling to? Now, this is a topic for another webinar. We actually have done some of these, and we're going to do more of these, and talking about customers and how to identify those customers and so forth. But you need to understand your customers. If you don't understand who you're selling to, you're probably not going to do very well. Market outlook. In other words, how friendly is the economy? How friendly is the local market? Are you selling locally or are you selling internationally? How friendly is the market to what you have to sell? And is it going to be on an upward trajectory? Or are you like one of those, hey, newspapers are trying to get out of the newspaper business right now. So do you really want to start a newspaper? That's the kind of question you're going to be asking about your business. Competitive landscape. Who else is out there? Who are your direct competitors who look like you, think like you, do what you do, try to eat your lunch every day, and you're trying to eat their lunch every day? Who are those indirect competitors as well? Who are those businesses out there that may be offering substitutes or alternatives to what you sell? So, it's not a pizza restaurant competing with your pizza restaurant, but maybe it's the frozen pizza at the grocery store. Those are the kinds of things you need to be looking for too. What are your management qualifications? I've got a friend who one of his sayings is one of my favorites. He says, "If you don't blow your own horn, there is no music. If you don't blow your own horn, there is no music." This is the section of the plan where you talk about yourself. You tell us who you are and why you are uniquely qualified to drive this business forward. What is your business structure? That's your legal structure. That's another topic, but you need to know, are you going to be a proprietorship, partnership, LLC, corporation? What is that going to look like and why? What kind of risks do you have out there in the world? What are the financial risks? What are the locational risks? What are the regulatory risks? Could the tribe or the government, state government, federal government come and regulate you out of business? And what are the inherent risks? Look, if I have a business that's dangerous, let's say I have a tree trimming business where people are climbing up trees and they're 40 feet in the air, dangling from a leather strap. They're running a chainsaw. That is a risky business. If I have a risk to my customers, to the general public, to my employees, I want to be able to outline all of those risks. What kind of location do you need and why? You need to be able to justify that. And then finally, what are your financial projections? What do the numbers look like? And are they realistic? We don't want wildly optimistic numbers, but can you give us numbers that are realistic that make us believe this is going to work? So let's break this down. Really, there are 6 questions that you need to ask, or that you need to answer rather, to have a good business plan. Take the outline that I just gave you, kind of set it aside for a minute, because the heart of your business plan lies in these 6 questions. Who will sell what, to whom, where, at what cost, and for what price? So let's break this down a little bit. Again, blow your own horn. You need to be able to describe your skills. What kind of background do you have? What have you done in your life that leads you to this point? Who are your team members? Who do you rely on? If you have a restaurant, are you hiring a top quality chef? Are you a chef and you're hiring a top quality sous chef? Are you hiring someone who maybe you have a landscaping business and you're hiring a master stonemason, or you're hiring your cousin who just graduated from college with a turf management degree? That sets you apart. Why you? Why you? So who will sell what? What are your technical attributes? What's the problem you solve? What's the good feeling you create? What are you doing that's different from everybody else? Those are the 2 things that I told you we're going to put a pin in. Don't just talk about the technical attributes of what you sell. Talk about the problem you solve. How are you solving the problem? And what is that good feeling you're creating? Because if you do that, if you talk about your product or service in those terms, you're going to be miles ahead of the competitors. And anybody who's looking to give you money is going to look at you more seriously than if you just say, this is what we do, this is what our product looks like. Next section of the business plan. We're moving on. To whom are you selling? And I had to put to whom in there instead of, my country boy accent says who you selling to. But my ninth grade teacher would not like that at all. So this is from Ms. Lolly. To whom are you selling? The marketing term today is avatar. An avatar is the idealized representation of your perfect customer. Let me say that again. The avatar is the idealized representation of your perfect customer. In other words, if there was only, out of the nearly 8 billion people on this planet, if there were only one person who would buy everything you can make, everything you can sell, they would stand out in a snowstorm or a hurricane to get what you have to sell. They would tell everybody they know about you. They love you. They trust you. They want to give you all their money. I mean, we're almost talking about Taylor Swift here, right? So if you had that one customer out there who is your Swiftie, who will just give you all their money, could you describe that one customer? Now, out of nearly 8 billion people, chances are there's not just one. But if you describe that one, you can find all the others who fit that description. And if you're talking to that avatar, if your ads are targeting that avatar, if your social media is speaking to that avatar, if the stories you tell on your YouTube videos are connecting with that avatar, if the products you're selling are desired by that avatar, then you're going to do much better than if you just try to be all things to all people. Or you open up your burger stand and hope hungry people just drive by. No. Even burger joints have avatars. Let me give you an example. If you eat at a Burger King once in a blue moon, Burger King loves you, but they're not going to be targeting you. You might be what Burger King considers a light user. A medium user probably eats twice a month or more at a fast food restaurant or even at a Burger King. But what Burger King wants is they want that person who can't get enough Whoppers. They eat their breakfast, lunch, dinner. Maybe they drive for a living and they're going to stop at every Burger King because that's their go-to. That's comfort food for them. They know exactly what they're going to get. It's consistency. So I was standing in line at a Burger King across from our local high school. And I walk up to the counter. The person in front of me is obviously a construction worker. He walks up to the counter. He hands the lady behind the cash register a $10 bill. She rings him up. They say nothing. There's eye contact, but there is nothing verbal. And she hands him his change. She says, "Thank you. You're number 307," or whatever the number was on his ticket. He moves down, and I was fascinated. So I had to ask. I said, "Tell me about that interaction. You two didn't even talk, but you knew his order. You knew what's going on." She says, "Oh, he's a construction worker. He's working on the project over at the school across the street. He orders the same thing every day for lunch, but he's in here for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because he can walk right over here. He's been here for 3 weeks. We know exactly what he orders. We don't need to talk." After the first few times, they understood he is their avatar. He is what's called a heavy user. Now, the guy wasn't heavy at all. He was actually pretty skinny because he probably works it off. If you remember Barney Fife from the Andy Griffith Show, he always talked about that Fife metabolism. I think this guy had one of those Fife metabolisms, but he was their avatar. If you understand who your avatar is, you're well ahead of the game. If you can demonstrate a clear understanding of your target customer, then lenders are going to be interested in you. And you need to know, what are the other markets that you can serve? Who else can you go get if you know who your avatar is? Who are the people around those avatars? Where do you need to be? What is the geographic region you're going to serve? What is your radius? If you have a plumbing business and you're willing to drive 50 miles away from home, you take a compass, one of those with, it's got the pencil on one side and the pointer on the other, and put that little point on your house on a map. And you move that pencil out to a 50-mile radius and you draw a circle. Everything in that circle is your universe. You don't need to worry about plumbing issues 100 miles away because you only going to respond in that 50-mile circle. Now, if I have a bodega in Brooklyn, my radius might be 2 blocks because you walk too far, you're going to come across a dozen other bodegas, right? If I have a convenience store on a corner in the middle of nowhere, what is my radius? Where are people coming from? Where are they going? Where they will stop at my convenience store. How are you going to get your products or services to your customers? Where do you need an office? Do you need a warehouse? What are you going to need? Explain that to us. You need to be able to demonstrate a clear understanding of your cost structure. This is what gets people on Shark Tank. I mean, if you watch an episode of Shark Tank sometime, it's the people who can't answer the cost question who get the boot. They get kicked out of the tank. How much is it going to take to get your product developed, made, stored, insured, packaged, and delivered to the customer? What does that take? You should be able to answer that question. Now, for your pricing strategy, we're going to request that you get some help with this. This is not something that I can solve for you in the next 30 seconds, but it's one of those critical decisions you can make. And if you spend your first year tinkering with your price, your customers are going to feel that every time it changes, and it's going to cost you business. So before the doors open, try to get a good handle on your pricing. Get somebody who can give you professional help, whether it's your native CDFI, whether it's somebody at your Chamber of Commerce, your Economic Development Office in your tribe. I know a lot of tribes have small business counselors on staff. I know the Eastern Band here does. Eastern Band of Cherokee has a business counselor on staff. She can help with those things. Where do you need to be in your pricing? Once you get that figured out, that first year is going to be much more comfortable for you because you're not going to be agonizing over, do you have the right pricing structure? So that's your business plan. That is the one thing that is really going to springboard your first year to success. And if your business plan is well done, your first year is going to be much easier. If your business plan is not well done, if it's not done at all, your first year is going to be extremely easy because you're probably going to fail within the first 12 months. But if you just kind of go halfway on the business plan, if you don't do a great job, but you force it to say things it shouldn't, you force the numbers to look good, maybe you guide your plan instead of letting your plan guide you, that first year could be kind of difficult because it's not going to be a well-programmed GPS. It's going to lead you off course. Or if you get off course, it's not going to help you make mid-course corrections. So if you have a great plan or if you have a terrible plan, it's really easy. That's the middle of the road that's going to cause you some problems. So work really, really hard on getting a good business plan. So there are some common challenges that almost every business faces in their first year. And like I said, whether it's urban, suburban, rural, doesn't matter. If you're running a business on a secluded island in the middle of a lake, you're probably going to run into some of these same challenges. So let's dive in. And we're going to break some of these down a little further as we go. But I want to talk about the money challenges. Money is always going to be an issue. Sometimes we have people who borrow money and they say, I need $50,000 to get this business started. Do you really? Maybe $50,000 is too much. Well, everything you borrow, you have to pay back. Maybe you only need $37,000 to do this comfortably. So let's work on that. Maybe you come in and you say, I need $30,000. And we find out that, you're going to run into some challenges that maybe you're not prepared for. Why don't we get you approved for a higher amount? Why don't we go ahead and approve you for $50,000? And then if you don't need it, you don't have to access it. But there are always going to be cost overruns, especially when you're building a new business. You're going to think, well, I'm going to buy these products at a discount, or I'm going to get these fixtures at a discount. And then all of a sudden you find out that discount went away the day before you placed the order. Or the things that you ordered are going to have to come from Germany. Oh, and there's an extra $600 shipping fee on top of that because we're having to special order these. And, things like this just happen. So there are always going to be cost overruns. In that first year, you're also going to need to be feeling around for what are those critical numbers. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what critical numbers are in a moment. But think about your critical numbers as a dashboard on your car. I mean, there's more technology in a modern vehicle than was used to send man to the moon. Your brakes make decisions that your brain can't fathom. When you hit the brakes, your car starts to gauge speed, direction, wheel alignment, road conditions. It takes everything into account. Used to, you hit the brakes, they locked your wheels up, and then you just went wherever the car took you. Wherever Newton's laws of motion directed you, that's where you went. Today, it's not that way. But you don't need to know all of those decisions. You don't need to be privy to every decision your car is making because your car tells you what's important. Do you have gas? Is your battery functioning? Is your oil level okay? How's the temperature on your car? It's the same when you go to the doctor. You say, well, I'm feeling pretty bad. And they do the same thing every time. They take your temperature, they weigh you, they look in your ears, your eyes, your throat. They take your pulse, they take your blood pressure. They're doing some of these things because vital signs are those critical numbers. And the combination of how those vital signs are doing can direct your doctor toward a diagnosis. The same thing is true in your business. If you know what numbers are important to your business, then you don't have to worry about all the other numbers that are not critical. And we've talked about pricing, but you don't want to spend that first year tweaking your prices up and down. You want to pretty much have your prices set for a while. You can always make adjustments later, but if the hot dog that I buy at your place is different price this week than it was last week, and maybe next week is a little bit higher or a little bit lower, I'm going to start to wonder, are you making this up? Are you just guessing as you go along? You're going to have to come up with a way to take accountability of your cash, which means you're going to have to control every bit of cash that comes into the business. Because if you don't control it, if you don't watch it like a hawk, it will disappear. And it doesn't have to be someone stealing your cash to make it disappear. It could be you making it disappear through carelessness, through assuming that everything that goes into the cash register belongs to you so you can take money out of the cash register and buy groceries on the way home. You have to be fearless, and you have to be fearsome in maintaining cash accountability. You also have to maintain an accountability of your cash flow. You have to know when your cash is coming in, when your cash is going out, so that when those bills come to you, you actually have the money to pay them. You need to understand your customers. Now, what do I mean by profile match? Look, we live in an online dating world these days. Whether you're doing speed dating or Tinder or Match.com or something, it's all about, matching you with a person who has similar interests, similar tastes. They like the same types of music, have the same types of hobbies, and so forth. There's nothing really different about your business. You sell a product. You want a profile match with people who love that product, want that product, need that product. Now, sometimes those people don't know they need your product or your service. We have to help them see that there's a match there. But your customer profile is going to help you. If you know exactly who that avatar is and you know who you're targeting with your advertisements, with your social media, with your videos, with your press releases, anything else that you're doing, even with your in-store decor or the graphics on the side of your van, if you know who you're targeting, it makes it so much easier to start bringing those people to you rather than you having to go out and chase them down. You need to come up with a system. Now, in that first year, this is not a wheel you want to reinvent every single day. The first time you have a customer complaint, you want to make sure that you come up with not just an answer for that, but a system for answering that complaint. Because when you come up with a system for it, then the people who work for you can employ that system. You're not relying on individual judgment to fix things. You want to be able to dial in your average ticket. When I talk to a restaurant, just as they're starting out, they may say, well, we think our average ticket is going to be X. And they're basing that on, we're going to serve you an appetizer, an entree, a dessert, and a beverage. Okay. But then they get into the thick of it. In that first year, they may find that their average ticket is Y. And it's a much lower number than X. Why? Because their plates are so full, nobody can handle dessert. Their wait staff is not suggesting that people pack these desserts up and take them home. They're not selling. And their food cost is going crazy because they're throwing away a lot of food. They're sending a lot of food home. Right. So you got to dial in that average ticket. You've got to understand, if I have X number of covers every day, if I have X number of customers every day, this is what my average ticket is. It makes it so much easier to predict your cash flow that way. So you definitely want a handle on that pretty quickly. Policies and procedures. Keep a notebook with you. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was just carry a notebook. Now, there are days when I don't carry a notebook, but I'll take a piece of paper, I'll fold it up into a pocket-sized format. I stick it in my pocket. I've got something with me all the time. The picture that you have in the top right corner of your screen just shows me wearing a shirt. But in my shirt right now, under that top button, and every day, no matter where I am, I have a pen with me. I can always write down things. So if I see something that wow, okay, this is an issue, maybe we need to develop a policy around this. I like the way that worked out. I like that procedure that I used to take care of that. That was pretty fast. I'm going to write down the procedure. You need a policy and procedure for everything. Why? Because that helps the business sustain without you having to be there to direct traffic every time something comes up. Now, if you really want to propel things forward, you write down a policy or you write down a procedure and you tell the good people you hire, this is the way to do it. And then let them do what humans do, and they will improve it. I used to get a little bit offended when I would come up with the best way to do something. I said, this is the best way to do this. I'd write it down step by step, and I would give it to people, and they would say, well, why do we need step 7 and step 13? Those don't need to be in there. We can do it this way. And all of a sudden, things just got better. They improved it. They made it faster. It was like, wow, why didn't I think of just letting them handle that? But you always need to be tracking those things so that you don't go through the first year and you're still just waking up every day reinventing that wheel. You also need a plan for how to exceed expectations. If you're just giving people what they want and people say thank you and you say no problem, well, no, it's not a problem because it's your job. You should be able to understand that not only are they okay with what you've delivered, they're ecstatic because you've exceeded their expectations. Maybe you promised a Friday delivery and you delivered on Thursday. See, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to be laser light shows and big band parades to exceed those expectations. Sometimes you just have to do a little bit better than you promised. Maybe you promised somebody a 2-week delivery. You're able to get it there in 10 days. It's the little things like that that make a big difference. You need to figure out the timing of your hiring. When we talk about people, look, humans are messy. People are messy. We talk about this all the time at Sequoia Fund. People have bad days. Their kids don't behave. Their kids are late for school. They make them late for work. Somebody is sick. Somebody underperforms. Somebody has a headache. Somebody is grouchy, or maybe somebody just doesn't get along. Maybe there's a personality conflict with someone else in the office. People are messy. People have problems. They come to work after their spouse has told them that they want a divorce. They come in or they call into work and they say, I've had a good friend who's passed away. And It shakes their world. So people problems, people issues are always going to be a thing if you hire people. But I want to run through these real quickly so that it gives you food for thought, that as you're moving through that first critical year, how do you make the rest of those years better? You need to understand your own personal capacity for getting things done. If you know that you can produce 10 widgets a day, and I love widgets because they don't exist, but it sounds fun to say it. You can produce 10 widgets a day. We don't even have to talk about fictitious widgets. We can talk about real things. We've got artists. We have several programs for our native artists, and they come in and they say, "Well, I bead until I get tired of beading, and then I carve, and I carve until I get tired of carving, and then I'll make ribbon skirts, and I make ribbon skirts until I get tired of making ribbon skirts, and then I'll paint, or I'll make baskets." And you see this. It's almost like I'm gonna do this until I get bored, and then I'm gonna move on to something else. But I don't really have a lot of finished work. So if I have a powwow coming up, if I have an art festival or something going on that we need to have a lot of finished work for it. Well, they've got a house full of half work. Now, as an artist, they can get away with that. They can say, I can make X number of beaded necklaces a day. I can make I can make this number of pairs of earrings a day. I can carve this many turtles a day out of this type of stone. But if I use this other type of stone, I can only do this many. They can figure that out. But if you are looking at hiring somebody, you need to know the upper limits of your productivity, because if you wait until you are so buried in work that you can't dig out from under, you're not going to have any time to hire good people. So what you want to say is, if I can make 10 widgets a day and I can do that every day, and yes, I'm pretty tired at the end of the day and that's all I get done. Well, maybe when you get to 7 widgets a day, maybe when your production increases to you're hitting 6 or 7 widgets a day, that's when you start thinking about bringing on someone, teaching them how to make those widgets. Because now you've got time to take your time. Now you've got time to hire someone, to train them, to bring them along so that you're not just getting buried in the work. You're going to have friends and family who still want to go out to eat. They still want to go to birthday parties. They still want to go to family functions. They still want to take family vacations. How do you work those people who are closest to you into your work life? Now, if you're employing them, if you're working with them, that brings up a whole other level of messiness. Because if you don't establish very clear boundaries that, yes, you are my brother, yes, you are my sister, but you are also, when you're here, my employee. At home, you can be my sibling. Here, you're my employee. If you don't create those boundaries, and very early on, things can get messy very quickly. Policies and procedures, there it is again. Policies and procedures when it comes to dealing with people. You need to be able to say, hey, we have a sexual harassment policy, even though there are only 2 of us here and it's just me and my brother. We don't employ any women, but we have a sexual and my brother might say, well, why do we have a sexual harassment policy? Because we want that policy in place so that when we hire a woman, when we grow beyond just the 2 of us, this becomes a comfortable workplace. We don't have a workplace that creates discomfort or unease. We want to have a compliant workplace so that walking in the door, this person understands that we have a policy that protects them and protects that workplace for them. The same thing goes with conflict of interest or cash management or anything. You want to be able to say, we've got a policy for that. That puts the lines on the playing field and it guides us. Back to your personal notebook that I know after today, everybody's going to carry around with them. When you come up with a process for how to do something, whether it's just walking in the door, unlocking the door, pulling the shades up, turning on the open sign and opening the cash register, even something as simple as that, you want to have that outline so that if you're taking a vacation, or if you break your leg and you're at home for a few days, or something else happens and you're not there, you want to be able to train these processes so that everybody does the same thing every single time. Back to McDonald's. They don't want to hire you because you've got a really cool new way of making a Big Mac. They want to hire people who can follow the recipe and put the Big Mac together just exactly the way it is on the poster. Because whether you love them or hate them, they are consistent. And if you can come up with some training processes to help people build consistency into your business, you're going to be better off. And you need to get used to the idea of making hard choices. Your mother may work for you, and I'm sure she's a fine lady. But if she's not working out, can you fire her? Yep. I actually call it the fire your mama decision. If you've got that fire your mama capability, then maybe small business is for you. I hope you never have to fire your mother. But the question is, could you if you had to? Operations. One of the reasons you want policies, procedures, you want training processes, you want to be able to hire good people is because you don't want to go around all day long stepping on small fires, just stomping out these small fires. If you have a fire, you not only want to put it out, you want to eliminate the fuel source of the fire, you want to eliminate the cause of the fire. And you do that through policies and procedures. You do that through good standards so that the fire doesn't pop up again. You want to make sure that you have a solid legal structure. And I'm going to advise you to have a conversation with two people about this. Number one, I want you to talk to an attorney, not your cousin who does family law, divorce law. No. Talk to somebody who does contracts, somebody who sets up small businesses. Maybe your tribe's legal aid department has someone who will do this. Ours used to, then they said, no, you know what? We're only going to do wills, estates. We're going to do family advising. We're not going to do family law because, that gets messy too. But if you want to set up a trust or a will or estate for your kids, we'll do that. They got away from doing the business part of it, but you want to talk to an attorney because an attorney is going to give you good advice on risk analysis. How is your legal structure protecting you against risk? The other person I want you to talk to is a certified public accountant, a CPA. And the reason I want you to talk to a CPA is because they have to have, so many hours of professional development credits every year. They keep up with everything, tax laws, you name it. They keep up with it all. And they are going to be able to advise you on your tax exposure risk, right? So your lawyer is looking at a different type of risk. Your accountant is going to look at it from what is your tax exposure? How do we minimize that? So if you can get those two pieces of advice, blend them together. If they're telling you the same thing, that's a pretty good indicator. If they're telling you something different, well, who makes the better argument? I can't tell you what business structure you need because that's dispensing legal advice. And my brother, who's an attorney, told me I have to say that. So that's my disclaimer for today. What are your growth opportunities? In that first year, you should have your head on a swivel. You should be looking around at what are the things that we can do that are similar to what we're doing right now. And can we capitalize on that? What are some tools that we can use to help us with this? Are there payroll tools? Are there accounting tools? Are there time management tools? Are there scheduling tools? Things that we can use to kind of keep everybody on track, herd all those cats, get everything done that we need to do. And keep in mind, speed kills. And I don't mean this in a bad way. When my daughters were learning how to drive, if you think back to when you were first learning how to drive, you may have been the same way. You see an incident ahead or you see something coming up on the side and your first inclination is hit the brakes. And sometimes hitting the brakes is the wrong thing to do. Sometimes the best thing to do is hit the gas and get out in front of it, get way ahead of it, get out of danger. Same thing with your operations. In that first year, if you're seeing opportunities, hit the gas. If you're seeing dangers, you may not need to hit the brakes. You may need to move faster so that you can move on to the next big thing. When you think about your marketing, and we're going to talk about this in just a moment, I want you to think about becoming distinct. Tom Peters, author and consultant, once said, you can be distinct or you can be extinct. I want you to learn how to be distinct. How do you set your business apart? You always need to keep an eye on the radar to see, where are your competitors? Are they coming up behind you? Are they mimicking you? Are they doing what you're doing? If you introduce a certain type of sandwich this week, are they putting that on their menu next week? If you're performing a certain service in your business, are they doing the same thing a month from now? Keep an eye on that competitive landscape. Know when to adjust your product or service mix. Maybe you do that seasonally. Maybe you do that because trends are changing and people don't like the red sweaters anymore. Maybe it's time to start selling the blue sweaters or the green sweaters. But if you sit on things too long and you don't take action, it can really hurt you. One of the things I'm going to suggest is you can contact me, you can contact your tribe, you can contact the Small Business Administration, or you can contact SCORE to help point you in the direction of resources. Now I'm going to put that in the chat here because I think this is one of the best resources that we have available. SCORE.org is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. This is a group of volunteers. There are about 14,000 of them across the country who specialize in different things. Maybe you've got somebody who spent years in marketing with a Fortune 500 company. Maybe you have someone who spent years with mergers and acquisitions. Maybe they have lawyers. Maybe they have product specialists. Years ago, we needed a product specialist to help somebody with waterproof ballistic nylon. I know nothing about waterproof ballistic nylon, but we were able to find 3 counselors through SCORE.org to help this person. This person was in North Carolina. We linked them with somebody in New Orleans who had spent a lifetime in waterproof ballistic nylon. So you're going to find specialties. They do about 75% of their counseling online, so you never have to go meet with someone. Everything they do is confidential, and they are built for speed. They want to get you ramped up and moving as fast as you can because they understand that time is money, and opportunity may be knocking right now, but it may be knocking next month. So check in with them, get some resources. Maybe you have an aunt or an uncle who started a business years ago, or a parent, somebody who has been in business, a neighbor. Maybe there's a tribal elder who has owned restaurants and hotels, on your reservation, and you just trust that they know what they're talking about, but now they're retired. They still have a lot to offer. Ask them questions. They would be happy to help you because then your success becomes their success. Take that first year to understand the resources you have and get a handle on those resources. Money. You need to understand how you manage money. Time. You need to control time. Don't try to manage time. Control it. Control access to your time. Don't stop what you're doing every time the phone rings. Don't stop what you're doing every time an email comes in, or every time you get a text message, or every time someone knocks on the door. Control access to your time so that you can be more productive. Control your energy. We do a lot of time management in this modern world, but we're doing very little of what we really need to be doing, and that's energy management. I may have time to make a difficult phone call, but it might be the end of the day and I'm just spent and I have no energy, and that phone call is not going to go well. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to start monitoring my energy levels throughout the day. And if I know that, hey, this, from 10 to 1, I'm at a real high energy level, that's when I want to do those most demanding, most difficult, and maybe the unpleasant tasks, because things are just going to go better. And then maybe in my low energy time of the day, I can try to do something that takes a little less brain power, a little less creativity. So, monitor your energy. Your ego, though, I mention this because small business owners, we all have this thing that drives us. And years ago, Western Carolina University, when they started their entrepreneurship program, Jim and Joanne Carland were the professors who jointly started this program. And they did an international study on small business killers. What is it that hurts small businesses more than anything? And they found out it was not lack of capital. It was not lack of planning. The number one small business killer was owner ego. It's that little voice in the back of your head that says, I don't need to do that. I've got this figured out. I don't need to write that down. I've got it up in my head. I know it. I don't need to tell other people about this because they'll want to do it too. I don't need to worry about cash management because it's all mine anyway. I'll just take a couple $1,000s out of the account and go on vacation. Before you know it, your owner's ego has destroyed your business. So be very careful with that. And the first year is a place for you to start monitoring that. Let's break this down a little bit. That first year, you're going to want to keep payroll records. Yes, even if you are the only person in the business. The way you do one thing is the way you will do everything. So start early, keeping good records. Don't take money out of the business account. Don't intermingle your personal and your business money. If you need to buy groceries, write yourself a paycheck. Not a check for the groceries. Write yourself a paycheck. Deposit that money into your personal account. Then go buy groceries and be consistent with that. You need to monitor your cash. And look, you can go on Google and you can just download really quick and easy paper cash reconciliation forms so that every day you've got a handle on your cash. You need to keep up with your cash so that when your accountant comes to you or when your bank comes to you and says, hey, wait a minute, we don't like some of this activity, you can tell, is that legitimate activity or something funky going on here? There might be some owner-specific records that are just specific to you, records that have to deal with, maybe your lease, maybe your utilities, maybe some deposits that you've paid that after a certain period, you'll get that money back if you've paid on time every month. Utility deposits will sometimes do that. If there's something that is maybe your industry requires you to keep up with certain educational credits, you have to have a repository for that. Make sure you're keeping that. Use your records for decision making. Don't just have your accountant print out a profit and loss statement and then glance at it and move on with your day or your month. Sit down with your accountant and let them help you figure out how to use those documents to make better decisions. Collections. I can't tell you the number of businesses that are just floundering because someone owes them money and they won't go get it. I can promise you that if you miss the Verizon bill, if you miss your car payment, if you miss your lease payment, if you miss your house payment, if you don't pay for those obligations, there's going to be somebody who comes after you. So if someone owes you money, go ask for it. Go get it. And if they're not going to pay you, take legal action. There's an old saying that the worst time to look for an attorney is when you need one. This is why you want to start talking to an attorney before you ever open the doors. Get some advice on the legal structure, and then you can start talking to them about, well, what happens if other things happen down the line? Can I use your services? Can we put you on a retainer? What would it take for us to get you to write collection letters and things like that? Now You're a known entity. The attorney knows you. They know what you're about. They know what you do. And when you call up and say, I need a collection letter, it's not going to be a big deal to them because they don't have to be re-educated or educated on what you do. They know. You need to make sure you pay your bills on time. Automate as much as you can. I'm a big fan of automation. Take the guesswork out of it because, again, humans are messy. And guess what we are, folks? We're human. And I've missed a bill due date just like everybody else. There's going to come a time when you say, oh, wait a minute, it's the 9th. This was due on the 8th, or this was due on the 1st. How did it get to be the 9th all of a sudden? Okay. If you set those things to be automatic, it does two things. It takes the guesswork out. It makes sure the bill is going to get paid. One of the most important things it does is it forces you to make sure there's money in the account before that company reaches in and grabs the money. Sometimes we need that extra accountability. You're going to want to know your critical numbers. Again, critical numbers are your dashboard numbers. Maybe your critical numbers are average ticket and table turns. Maybe your critical number is how many lawns can I mow today? How many dogs can I groom in a day? Maybe it's how many cars can I detail in a day? How many boxes can we deliver in a week? Whatever that critical number is, monitor that because that becomes your dashboard. My guess is you're probably going to have at least one number on the revenue side, and you're probably going to have one number on the expense side that you're going to want to keep an eye on. And again, pricing, I really wish we had about 6 more hours together. We could really dig into pricing. But get some professional help with that. Don't let your pride, don't let your ego get in the way and think, well, I've just, I pay $1 for it, so I'm going to sell it for $2, or I pay $100 for it, I'm going to sell it for $200 because that's easy. No, that could be a big, big trouble spot for you. Get professional help with your pricing. Make sure you're reconciling that bank account every month. Make sure that no matter how many accounts you have, you're reconciling those accounts, that you know where that money is. It's so easy today for hackers to get into your account. And hackers don't jump in today and take $60,000. No, they're smarter than that. They're smarter than we are. They'll hit your credit card or they'll hit your bank account for $5.75 or $6.23 or $4.11. They're going to make it look like you bought a cup of coffee that you don't remember, and you're not going to think about it. And they're going to do that a few times. And maybe the next month it's going to be $12.82. You're not going to think about it. You go, wow, that's a small, well, I just can't remember what I did there. Okay. The next month you're going to have no money in that account, or your credit card is going to be completely maxed out and nobody saw this coming because you let these things go. If you're reconciling it on a regular basis, it means you're watching your money, and what gets monitored gets managed. You need a budget. Again, you might need your accountant to help you with a budget. But if you don't have a budget, you don't really have any guardrails on your financial highway. And you can just go wherever you want to go. But then when you run out of money, what are you going to do? With a budget, it doesn't mean that you can't spend money on, maybe the hospital is having a fundraiser and they need you to help buy t-shirts for the fundraiser. Okay. Well, you don't have t-shirt money, but if you have a budget, you can look in your budget and say, okay, where can we move money so that we can put our logo on these fundraiser t-shirts for the hospital? Again, it forces you to make thoughtful decisions. Now let's talk about accelerating cash flow real quickly before we move out of money. I see a lot of businesses that, they bill their customers, or they perform a service and they're waiting for their customer to cut a check and they just kind of wait. Okay. Maybe I'm your competitor and I can live without the cash longer than you can, but you need that cash right now. How are you going to accelerate that cash flow? Well, you can take credit cards. You can say, I'm not going to do the service. I'm not going to sell the product. I'm not going to ship the product until we got the credit card number. Well, people say, well, Russ, that's 3%. They're going to hit me with a 3% credit card fee. I don't want to do that. Well, if you count that as a cost of doing business, knowing that you're going to get your money today instead of 3 months from now, that's a pretty easy decision to make. Also, you know that your customers are going to spend, by some studies, anywhere from 42 to 65% more if they can use credit cards. Well, now you don't have to wait for them to pay you. We used to do, we had a loan with a little country store, and we walked in and there were Post-it notes all along the wall behind the counter in this country store. And it was a loaf of bread. It was a pack of bologna. It was a frozen pizza. It was 10 gallons of gas. It was just all of their accounts receivable on Post-it notes. But we've got to be able to accelerate cash flow. Sometimes if we can accelerate cash flow and accelerate the rate at which we're getting paid, we don't need to charge as much. Right? So we accelerate that flow of money through the business. We've talked about triggers for hiring. You need to know, when is it necessary for you to hire somebody. Sometimes you have a deadline, and then you might even have a drop dead deadline. The deadline says, I'm at 70% of my capacity. It's time for me to hire somebody. The drop dead deadline is, I am now at 100% of my capacity. I'm exhausted every day. I have no time to do interviews. I'm going to bring a mirror to the office, and the first person who breathes on it and fogs it, I know they're living, and I'm going to hire them. And boy, can that get you in a lot of trouble. You want to automate your processes. Again, take the guesswork out of it. If there's anything that you can automate, whether it's customer responses, onboarding, anything that you can do, automate. If you need help with automation, I welcome you to send me an email. Give me a little bit of, hey, how can I automate this process? I will point you to a tool that might be able to help you. We've done a lot of work around this at Sequoia Fund and trying to help small businesses automate common processes. We've talked about time control, but I really want you to think about, what calendar do you use? Are you time blocking? In other words, are you blocking out time to pay bills? Are you blocking out time to do your bookkeeping? Are you blocking out time to make customer phone calls? Are you blocking out time to do employee evaluations? If you're blocking out those, or hey, are you blocking out time to have dinner with your family? That first year is going to feel like you are doing nothing but running your business. But if you are time blocking, it's going to make things feel a whole lot smoother for you. And are you getting out of your own way? Are you creating systems to get out of your own way so that you're not having to step into the middle of every decision that gets made? And at Sequoia Fund, this is one of the things that we're talking about in the office, is that if I'm having to do your job, I don't need you. Now, that sounds terrible, but really what I want is for people to own their job. We hire good people. We want them to use their best judgment. We want them to do the right thing. And if they're doing the right thing, if they're using their best judgment, and they're taking care of our customers, well, then I'm going to be satisfied. But I don't have to make every decision, and you shouldn't either. How are you going to stand out from the crowd? How are you going to, maybe all of you're in the roofing business, and all your competitors let the phone ring. It takes 3 weeks to set up I can't get somebody out to look at your roof for another 3 weeks. And then it's going to take me another month before I can give you an estimate. Okay, well, maybe the way you stand out from the crowd is you answer the phone on the third ring every single time. You never make people wait more than 24 hours for an estimate. And then you schedule the work so that even if it's 6 weeks out, people know. They know exactly what to expect. It is not knowing that really causes people discomfort, that uncertainty. If you can take the uncertainty out of your customer interactions, out of your marketing, then people will start to love you because your competitors are not taking out the uncertainty. How can you learn more about your customers? And that first year, you should just be getting an education. You should try to learn all you can about your customers. You should be talking to your customers. Ask your customers hard questions. Ask your customers questions like, What do you hate about our industry? What do you hate about businesses like ours? Is there a way we can do this better? Is there a way we can do something that nobody else does that would make you happy? And the way we do that is we go back to we're going to sell a solution to a problem and we're going to sell a good feeling. Southwest Airlines and JetBlue said, "What do you hate about flying? We're going to try to fix that." Disney World said, "Well, we may not have the world's best roller coasters, but we're going to make sure that you have a good feeling. And when you get home, your kids are going to ask, when can we go back? When can we do this again?" If you can couch what you sell in those two terms, solution to the problem, good feeling, you've hit a home run. And that's where we want you to be. Your customers also have, while as you're learning about your customers, as you're thinking about, how do we take care of our customers? How do we connect with our customers? This first year, you're going to want to learn what are your customers' motivational triggers. Now, we all have motivational triggers. For some of us, we want to be the first in line to get that brand new shiny product. For some of us, we just want to make it easy to use. This is why we see a lot of Gen Z, those younger adults, are going back to flip phones. That's right. They're ditching the smartphones. They're ditching iPhones and Androids, and they're going back to flip phones because they're easy to use, they're simpler, and it takes out the distraction from their lives. What are your customers' motivational triggers? And if you understand those and you can speak to those, again, this puts you in a distinct competitive advantage. And as we're talking about distinction, do something different. Do something worth talking about. When I say sell an overt benefit, the overt benefit is that benefit, that thing that you do for people that just hits them right over the head, that they can't ignore, that they say, wow, this is fantastic. Now, on the last slide, I mentioned Rain-X. Oops, sorry. I mentioned Rain-X. If you've ever used Rain-X, again, it's not a sexy product. It's not high tech. It's not something that just gets people emotionally jazzed up. But they sell an overt benefit, and that is that they put two windshields together in the same graphic. One has Rain-X and one does not. And the one with Rain-X, you can see clearly without windshield wipers in a driving rainstorm. Okay, that's called selling the overt benefit. If I have a beachfront property overlooking a beautiful blue ocean, I'm not going to tell people to come down here because our air conditioning is efficient or our parking is convenient. I'm going to show a picture of the view from their balcony. That's selling the overt benefit. We want to use a consistent look, a feel, an image, something that builds consistent. When you see golden arches, when you see the Nike swoosh, you know exactly what you're looking at. There's no doubt that what could this be? What could this be? It's a consistency. You want to know more than your competitors. You want to be information central. When people ask you a question, you want to know more about your customers, their needs, the products that you offer, your competitors' products. You want to know all that stuff. You want to create an exclusivity. Maybe you want to be the only game in town, and yes, we're worth the wait. You want to learn how to sell, because if you don't sell something, you're just an order taker. You're just waiting for the money to come in, and sometimes nothing happens when you do that. Create something new. Do something. Maybe your product or your service is so good you could create an educational program around that and teach your customers how to do that. If you have a restaurant, maybe you can offer cooking classes to your it doesn't mean that they're never coming back to your restaurant, but now you've taught them something so cool they never want to eat anywhere else. Capitalize on professionalism. If your competitors are driving around vans that look like horror movie vans, they're black vans with white paint on the side that says free candy, and your van has a great color scheme. It matches your brand and it sells your product and it's clean and everybody's wearing a uniform. Look, you're going to be ahead of the game. Capitalize on that professionalism. Use your overt benefit in your name. All right. So Rain-X, right? It's in the name. Don't try to be everything to everybody. Pick a lane, pick a niche, stay in it. Do that one thing and get really, really good at it. Like Kentucky Fried Chicken. Colonel Sanders, when he was 65, he said, "What do I do better than anybody else in the world? I fry chicken. That's all I'm going to do. Teach people what you know, share it, but be the solution, not the problem. Don't say, well, this product is under warranty, and if you go home and fill out this 72-page document, the warranty will be in effect. No. Hey, we're going to take care of your warranty paperwork. You don't have to worry about a thing. You'll get a confirmation email. That's being the solution. Your growing pains. Look, big companies have got these things figured out. And in your first year, you need to figure out very quickly, how are you going to produce quality? How are you going to be consistent about it so that it's good, not just once, but every time? How are you going to develop the capacity to give the customer what they need when they need it, when they want it? Well, if you are working yourself to the bone and you don't have time to hire the next person, you are over capacity. And that means you have zero capacity to take on anything else. Recovery. Recovery is when you mess up. And again, folks, we're human. We're all going to mess up. How do you fix it? Do you have a plan for getting back into your customers' good graces? Okay, last couple slides here. This is going to get a little preachy, but I promise not really. I want you to take care of you. Entrepreneurs in the first year of business, we are all about the care and feeding of the business. How do I take care of this? How do I make sure I'm managing my cash flow? How do we make sure the business has enough money? The business has enough inventory. The business has enough of this and that. But we do a really poor job of asking, what should the business give to us? What should we be able to take from the business? Well, the business should energize you. It should not be sucking energy out of you. Nobody I've ever met says, I want to start a business because I want to create this monster that is going to completely suck the life out of me, consume all my time, and destroy my family. And yet, that's what happens. Do whatever you need to do to keep your energy up. It is stressful enough as it is. Stay hydrated, drink water. And yes, guys, my drug of choice is Mountain Dew. And water is the number one ingredient in Mountain Dew. But let's face it, that is not a healthy lifestyle. So I drink water, a lot of it, because my wife, for some odd reason, wants to keep me around for a while. So keep your energy up. Eat foods that are going to fuel you. Set routines that are going to help you be predictable. Steve Jobs wore blue jeans and a black turtleneck because it was his uniform. My uncle, who had a very successful business for years before his retirement and his death, he wore a black or a white golf shirt and a khaki pair of pants and comfortable shoes. That was his uniform. He didn't have to get up every morning and waste time trying to think about, what am I going to wear today? Sarah Blakely will tell you the same thing. Sarah Blakely founded Spanx. She does not get up every morning and wonder what she's going to wear. She wears a uniform. Now, that uniform can be really stylish. It can look really cool. You'll notice that on my shirt there in the picture, I'm wearing a Sequoia Fund logoed shirt. Everybody at Sequoia Fund wears something with Sequoia Fund on it every day that coordinates with everything else they wear, and we don't have to worry about, what are we going to wear to work today? Predictability keeps you sharp. Engage in a diversion, especially if you're taking a hobby and turning it into a business. You need a new hobby because it's not your hobby anymore. You're not doing it for fun. You're doing it as a business. So do something, find something, play chess, go for a walk, throw darts, learn a new skill, play pickleball, bead, whatever it takes for you to take your mind away. That's what you want to do. Eat well, exercise, sleep lots. And I end with sleep because it's the one thing you're not going to get enough of in that first year. And you're going to need the most of it. It's stressful. It's exhausting. If you only set one routine as you go through this first year, make sure you have a consistent time to go to bed, go to sleep, and wake up. Turn your devices off. Turn your phone off an hour or two before you go to bed. Let your brain have a chance to reset, calm down, and get ready to go to sleep. Don't lie awake in bed at night till 1 o'clock in the morning looking at Instagram. That is not keeping up with your bedtime. Sounds preachy, I know, but I'm going to promise you, if you do these things, your energy level will be greater, your focus will be greater, and your business will be more successful. Please, before you leave today, you're getting ready to take an evaluation, a survey. I want you to make sure you do that. I'm going to turn it back over here to Brooke and let her get you that. But I want you to make sure you're downloading the files that we've given to you so that you have these to refer back to. You also have my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me and say, hey, Russ, I was in the webinar. I got a question about this or that. I would love to hear from you. Brooke, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thank you so much for spending the last hour and a half with me.
Thanks so much, Russ. That was such an incredible presentation. Thank you for all your time and your effort. I've gone ahead and launched today's webinar feedback survey. If you guys could just take a moment to fill that in for me. It just takes a minute or two to go through, and the feedback really helps us to do more of what's working and to be aware of things that could use improvement. I do want to note that it is anonymous, so feel free to be as candid as you would like. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. That's going to be next week on May 15th. That'll be on tribal healthy homes, what you need to know to keep your family safe. That one's going to be presented by Marie Bonville. As always, registration is free. And you can access this along with any of our other recorded webinars online on our website, nativelearningcenter.com. There's a Catheta webinars tab that has a recorded webinar section. And when you're on there, you can click on any of the webinars that we've done for the past 2 years. So feel free to view those, share them with your colleagues, share them with your friends. And we also hope you can check out our upcoming events posted to our various social media. You could find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Our LinkedIn link is actually there in the links pod. We also have an in-house produced podcast titled the Hopathanga Native American Podcast. We discuss focused topics within Native American housing and self-determination. So you could listen to that on Simplecast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can view the video recordings with our guests on our YouTube channel as well. All right, folks. Once again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you again, Russ, for your time and effort with the presentation. And I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the day. We do hope to connect with you guys real soon.